Blueberry scones are one of my favorite scone recipes. I got this years ago. It's got cream in it and they're just so rich and delicious. When blueberries are ripe and in season, it's a great time to use them. So let's get started making it. Start off by preheating the oven to 400. I use a silpat mat on a baking sheet, but if you don't have one of these, then lightly grease your baking sheet. In a large bowl, sift together the dry ingredients. So we're going to have 2 cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And then sift it together. If you don't have a sifter, you can use a strainer. Next, you're going to take 6 tablespoons of cold unsalted butter. If you only have salted butter, that's fine. And cut it into pieces. Now when I put the butter in, I use a pastry cutter, or also called a pastry blender, to cut in the butter. And if you don't have one of these, they say you can use 2 knives. I think that would be way too hard. But I use a pastry blender and then put a regular dinner knife in my left hand to scrape it down. And you just keep using it over and over and over, cutting in the butter until the largest pieces of butter are the size of small peas. This recipe calls for 1½ cups of fresh blueberries. You want to put them in a strainer or a colander and rinse them off, and pick out the ones that are bad and give them a good rinse and let them drain. Then stir the blueberries into the flour mixture. In a separate bowl, using a fork, you want to mix together the 2 eggs and then add 1/3 cup of heavy cream and then mix that a little bit. Then make a well in the center of the dry ingredients and pour that cream mixture over it. Then give it a stir, being careful to not break the blueberries, and you want the dough to come together. Now I'll go ahead and use my hands to knead it, and to knead it carefully so that I'm not puncturing the berries. And once it starts to come together, I turn it out onto a lightly floured countertop. The point is now to pat the dough into a 6-inch square that's about 1¼ inches thick. I have, I guess you could call it a cutting blade that is 5 inches long. So I just hold that up to the dough and realize, okay, if I add 1 inch to this thing, is it 6 inches? And keep patting it and working it until you have a 6 inch by 6 inch square. Now, if you don't have one of these cutters, you can use a knife that you put a little bit of flour on, but I go ahead and put flour on this cutter. And you're going to cut it into 4 3-inch squares. So just put a big plus sign into the middle of it. Then each square is going to be cut diagonally, and now you'll have 8 triangles. Transfer all 8 triangles to the baking sheet. Pour a little bit of the cream that you still have, you should still have plenty, into a small bowl, and then use a pastry brush to brush the tops of the scones with cream, and then sprinkle with a bit of sugar. Bake until they're golden brown. Now that's going to be about 20 to 22 minutes. When they're done, they'll be golden brown. I had to bake these 22 minutes. Then transfer them to wire racks to cool. So that's it. That's blueberry scones. I hope you enjoy them. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Bye. Today I'm making a delicious pound cake. I found this recipe years ago, and one of the secret ingredients is cream cheese. You only need 3 ounces. Now remember back in the olden days when all the grocery stores